Welcome everyone to TEDxTSMU. TED is a non-profit organization dedicated to discovering, debating, and spreading ideas that spark conversation, deepen understanding, and trigger meaningful conversations.
In a spirit of ideas worth spreading, TED has created a program called TEDx. TEDx is a program of local, self-organized events that bring people together to experience a TED-like event.
And our event is TEDxTSMU, where X is an independently organized TED event. And before we dive in, let's begin with a short video to set the stage.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Aryan Kapoor.
I am Rahman Aliyev.
And I am Aman Ansari.
And we're going to be your hosts for the day. You could live and die separated, or you could come together as one. TED is all about innovations, and you cannot innovate stuck within four walls. And you know what they say about walls. You got to break them.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to our esteemed director, Dr. Irakli Natrashvili, to formally start our event with a voice of president.
Greeting. Today we have come here not only to hear the ideas. Today we have come here for the same reason. We have to provide the same reasons, as we have to share common values and similar beliefs. And we want to be inspired by the speakers of TEDxTSMU and learn from them. You know, life is like an ocean. Sometimes it's calm and sometimes it's stormy. It's very easy to let the ship in a calm water, in a calm weather. And many can do it, but only those who has very strong characters and strong hands can lead the ship in a stormy weather and stormy water. Today's speakers have gone through their own life stories and life experiences, and they take the courage to stand here and on this stage and share with us their lived experiences and their experiences and their beliefs. So let us listen, feel, and learn from them. In the wall of Tbilisi State Medical University, where the bridge of new possibilities, new opportunities are built and impossible barriers are broken down. I think the students of Tbilisi State Medical University for making these events possible today. I thanking for all speakers for they able to share with us their experiences and their positions. And also I thank all the attenders for taking their time to come here and spend their time today with us. Thank you, and let's enjoy the day together. Thank you very much.
I first met our first speaker as a clueless first-year medical student. And I remember asking her why she does what she does. And 6 years later, I still remember what she told me. What's the fun if everything is already discovered? It's great to be at the front lines of something new and to be a pioneer. And that's exactly what she is, a pioneer. A clinical geneticist who faces the unknown every single day, who looks into the eyes of parents desperately searching for answers and chooses to keep searching even when the odds are impossible. She speaks today for children whose names may unfortunately never appear in textbooks, but only on epitaphs, but whose lives deserved to be saved. She doesn't just practice medicine, she practices courage. Please join me in welcoming someone to stage who I deeply, deeply admire, Dr. TEDxTSMU.
What is the main goal of a doctor? The main goal of a doctor is to prevent, diagnose, and treat illnesses, and support and encourage patients living healthier, fuller lives. All of this depends on one essential step: making the right diagnosis. Moreover, diagnosis should be achieved timely. Otherwise, irreversible damage may happen, and the window for effective treatment may be lost. Imagine being a type of a doctor where obtaining diagnosis takes on average 6 years. A type of a doctor where for most of your patients, the conditions are so rare that no one of your colleagues have heard about them. A type of a doctor where many of your patients have diseases for which the cause has not yet been identified, and we call such patients undiagnosed. A type of a doctor where for 95% of your patients, there is no approved treatment. A type of a doctor where you finally manage to obtain the diagnosis of those remaining 5% of treatable conditions, but it's too late. I am this type of a doctor, a clinical geneticist, and all of the above mentioned is true for my everyday professional life and the children I see in the clinic. These are the children with rare diseases. A disease is called rare when it affects fewer than 1 in 2,000 individuals. Some rare diseases are 1 in a million, and others are ultra rare, for which only several patients worldwide have been identified. There are over 6,000 rare diseases. 95% have no approved treatment. Over 80% are caused by defects in the genes. 75% manifest in childhood. And 30% of these children never reach their 5th birthday. Yes, rare diseases are rare, but collectively they are common and affect world's 300 million people. These 300 million people need our help, need your support to be heard. And this is why I stand here today. Here is the story of 2 children, Hira and Elvin. Hira was born in 2021. She was hospitalized at 2 months due to frequent infections, high temperature, and diarrhea. Her blood test revealed she had immunodeficiency. This is when your body does not produce any cells to fight even simple bacteria. Often, conditions like this are caused by defects in the genes. We took the blood and sent it to the lab for analysis. After 1 month, the results were back, and she had mutation in a gene called ADA. ADA belongs to those 5% of treatable conditions where we have an approved treatment. I called the parents the same day to arrange the visit for the next day. Over the phone, the parents told me the child passed away a week ago. Elvin was born in October 2024. He was admitted to the hospital due to frequent infections, poor weight gain, and high temperature. And he also revealed to have immunodeficiency. The doctors called me urgently. Dr. Tika, we need the diagnosis. The child may not live for a few more days. It was Friday. I rushed to the hospital and we took the blood. On Sunday, Elvin passed away. On Monday, we shipped the samples. Elvin had exactly the same mutation as Hira. And again, it was too late. Looking closer, it appears that both families come from the same region of Georgia, where most of the residents are ethnic minority Azerbaijanis. Historically, they were settled down in the 16th century. Since then, they remained socially and territorially isolated, preserving their culture, religion, language, and identity. When we encounter the same recurrent mutation in small subpopulations like this, we call it founder mutations. It's like an old secret hidden in their DNA, passed down from generation to generation. Looking at the map, this suggests that there may be more children dying from this treatable condition without ever receiving a diagnosis. Today, ADA immunodeficiency is a treatable condition, and children who receive timely therapy and subsequent hematopoietic stem cell transplantation survive, and they live full lives. In many countries, newborns at birth are screened for certain genetic conditions, including immunodeficiencies. Sadly, in Georgia, newborn screening does not include immunodeficiencies, which means children like Hira and Elvin die from treatable conditions. And this is heartbreaking. Here is another story, this time of a sister and brother who have developmental delay, skin manifestations, and alopecia. With the help of our dear colleagues from Norway, we managed to perform genetic testing, and it revealed mutation in a gene called MSMO1. Imagine, by that time, only 5 people worldwide had this mutation. In previous patients, special cholesterol supplement and prepared ointment led to remarkable improvements. With charity support, we managed to obtain costly supplements enough for 6 months. And we started treatment. And yes, it worked. The skin improved, the hair started to grow, the weight improved. And we published the successful case in 2023. After joyful 6 months of successful treatment, the supplements were over. The family, poor and insecure, could not continue treatment. After 2 years since then, the symptoms are back. This part of the story is not in the published paper. The children I mentioned managed to obtain the diagnosis, but there are still so many who remain undiagnosed. This is Hayam. I saw him in October 2024. He had mild difficulty walking, mild speech delay. Last month, his parents called me and said he cannot walk or play or hear or talk. This is Murad. He's 2 years in this video. He's happy and healthy, enjoying the pool. He's 7 years now. He's not able to talk or walk or play or smile anymore. He's spastic and paralyzed. Our colleagues from London are investigating their samples to find the cause of the illness. When there are populations isolated like this, we often find rare and ultra-rare diseases. Doctors, researchers, scientists from all around the world are putting their every effort to find the diagnosis in communities like this. Why? Because some diseases are treatable, and we should never miss a treatable condition. Even when the disease is not treatable, the parents want to know what is the name of their child's condition. They want to have future children, healthy children. If we know the diagnosis, we can help them to prevent the recurrence risk. But without diagnosis, this is impossible. Needless to emphasize that study of molecular and cellular mechanisms of rare diseases drives precision medicine and enables development of future treatments. My twin sister is a lawyer, and she once told me, justice delayed is justice denied. The same is in medicine. Diagnosis delayed is life denied. Medicine is a noble profession, and service to people is the highest professional, personal, and social responsibility. I'm honored, privileged to be a doctor. And despite all the difficulties, I'm absolutely passionate about my profession. I believe that by raising public and healthcare awareness about rare diseases, by expanding newborn screening, by supporting treatment, and of course, by global collaboration, together we can make a difference. Together we are strong. Together we will save lives. Thank you.
This piece, I did it on abandoned railway station in Surami. Imagine a place long forgotten, where nothing remains for use. They try their luck in a bigger, louder cities. There is kind of stillness there, but not a peaceful one. On the contrary, a silent, heavy one that grows when hope starts to fade. The wall says, I am the wall, and I can't, but you? This rhetorical question, simple as it is, has power. It does not scream, but it stirs. It becomes a fuel for those who feel frustrated, stuck, and unseen. It becomes a silent pat on the back. I've seen so many people taking pictures with this wall. Some are smiling, some sad, some thoughtful. And even if it is a small gesture, like a pat on the shoulders, we humans need it. We need to be reminded that we are capable of change. Hi, I'm Gagos, and I do street art. When I started in Georgia, there was almost no street art scene. Of course, I'd seen Banksy, Haring, Basquiat, the pioneers who broke the rules and used streets to speak about social issues. They flipped the paradigm. Instead of bringing people into museums, they brought art directly to public spaces, weaving the art in the fabric of daily life, making art accessible, unmissable, like a sip of morning coffee. What fascinates me the most about street art is that it allows artists to present worn out, controversial issues from fresh perspectives that touch the public emotionally, connect with them on a human level, and spark reflection. And this is what drives change. So, I was with my first stencil and spray cans on the streets with no experience whatsoever. On my very first day, I got stopped by authorities. Imagine that this was so new to them, they did not know whether that was legal or illegal. So we ended up to discuss the issue, and surprisingly, they could relate with it. This encounter turned into such an exciting moment for me that I fell in love with street art from day one. And you know what is magnificent about it? You don't need to earn a degree. You don't need to be even professional. All you need is a strong concept and courage to put it out there. It's not about beauty, nor about perfect technique. It's about asking right questions and raising the right issues to provoke thought and dialogue. I remember one piece I was doing about femicide. It was a recurring issue by that year. As I was painting, a lot of passerbys commented on this, like, oh, that's beautiful piece, this is nice. Almost no one wanted to focus on the subject itself. Only one person paused and asked, is it about the femicide that I see recently on TV? And I said, yes. He told to another passerby, who told another one. And finally, while I was finishing this piece, there were more than 20 persons standing behind me talking about the same issue. And that moment, it became clear that this painting is not about aesthetical beauty anymore. It started to mean something. It started a conversation. It connected. It told the story to public. And I, the artist, faded into the background as this art started to live life of its own. And this dispute, this friction of ideas, is what drives change. That's where art finds its power, to raise controversial issues, to force questions into open, to make people confront their own taboos and stigmas they try to avoid. I live in Tbilisi, but I often travel in different regions of Georgia to speak about problems people face here, obviously through walls. I believe it's especially important for those regions because those regions are often overlooked. These stories does not make headlines, but their stories matter just as much. This post I found in the entrance of Khashuri. This is a small town in eastern Georgia. And I wanted to change this place. I wanted to change it into something vivid, more playful. So while I was working on this, almost whole population of Khashuri was standing there. They were getting excited, like what it will be. They were asking a lot of questions. And finally, when I completed this tiny piece, the smile which this brought to their faces, it means the world to me. And this moment This connection is what keeping me doing street art. Street art is about controversial issues. It is not in a disruptive way. On the contrary, it leads people towards agreement. I remember it was time when wave of evictions shaken Tbilisi. And I was doing this piece near the house where eviction just happened. Someone approached to me. By his look, it was obvious he was from internal affairs. You know, those guys, they don't really bother with subtlety. So he asked, like, is it about evictions? I nodded. And then he tried to be strict on me. He said, what we should do now? Like in the way like he wanted to show his power. He wanted to show that he's in charge and he could stop me anytime he wanted. But by this time, I was no rookie anymore. I had a lot of run-ins with law enforcement. So I said calmly to him, as you see, I still need to work on this stencil. When I will finish it, I will get to my car, start the engine. I will warm up my frozen hands, drive home, and sleep because I'm exhausted. And he did not know what to answer on this. He scratched his head to find the answer, and finally he said, all right, in fact, I do not have anything against this. And just like this, a wall, a question, and a quiet human moment. Street art is also a magnificent way to show your culture abroad. This piece I did in Brussels. While I was working on this piece, a woman approached and stood behind me. She was staring at the stencil for a while, and then she started to dial. And I asked her, if you are calling to police, please hang up because I'm not doing anything wrong. This is a traditional dance from Georgia, and this is European Day, so I'm trying to represent my culture. After all, Georgia is candidate of EU membership. She looked at me still a bit suspicious, and she asked my social media. So I gave her my contact. Other day, I received a message from her. She was saying, I read Georgian poem translated into French. I saw several Georgian dances, and I listened to folk songs. And I asked impatiently, you know, you have such a rich culture. We should be one begging you to join EU. Speaking of foreign countries, we have huge immigration. 2 years ago, I did this piece in Tbilisi. I did it in New Year's holidays. The label on the box says, Santa, please bring my mom back from immigration as New Year's gift. Luca, 12 years old. While I was doing this stencil, elderly woman approached, visibly upset, and started to scream at me. Why you are doing this here? This is my wall. Who gave you the permission? And then in her anger, she reached her pockets, she took glasses and started to read the text. And suddenly she froze. Her face expression changed, it softened. Tears welled up in her eyes. And she whispered, my granddaughter's name is Nuka. Now she's 15 years old, and I have not seen her for a long time. And in that moment, the world no longer belonged to her. It belonged to everyone who ever waited for someone to return. This is what street art is about. It's poetry, sometimes sad, sometimes bitter, sometimes satirical, but real. It tells the stories. It tells the story of people's hardship. Well, there are local issues and there are global ones. Whenever I travel, I try to address those issues which has no borders. One of such things is global warming, obviously. This crisis has no borders, yeah? I painted this piece in Porto, near the cozy guest house run by British family. While I was working on this, they were standing aside, watching me and explaining to their son what global warming, what climate change was, in the manner only loving parents could do. They said, Ethan, when your ice cream melts, you get sad, right? He nodded, obviously. Then they said, imagine if the whole world's ice cream will melt together. What a huge tragedy that's gonna be. Ethan's mouth dropped open and he started cry out loud. And his parents could barely calm him down. Appears he really, truly loved the ice cream. I talked a little bit about law enforcement because, let's face it is part of street art culture. It's considered still illegal in a lot of places. But this is magnificent. Even when authorities show up, you see that they can relate with the issue. This piece I did in Madrid. When authorities appear, I had done Don Quixote, but I still have not done oil rig. So I used Google Translation to communicate with them. I asked, are you gonna arrest me? They said, what, for painting Don Quixote? If we do that, we would end up behind the bars as well. And then they got curious, like, what we are doing on the left side, is it a windmill? I said, no, it's gonna be an oil rig, but like you guys appeared and I can't finish it. I needed only 10 more minutes, that's all. And they were strict on me. They said, no, unfortunately, I need to stop it. I can't do this anymore. Because local residents call, and if we receive this message again, if we receive this call again, mind you that we need only 20 minutes to get here. So in this moment, you realize that wall is no longer a surface. It's for dialogue, even for those in uniform. And finally, I want to speak about collaborations. One of my cherished projects was done in collaboration with Polish organization who helped to establish Center for People with Special Needs in Gori. This is a small town near Tbilisi. This is Georgi, the goalkeeper of Gori's Paralympic football team. He does not have an arm. But this is not an obstacle for him to fly. Georgi is a symbol of boundless possibilities. This is a last story for today, and I will leave you here with inspiration. This is how I exactly see street art, a way of giving wings to those in need. And really, who among us does not need them?
Imagine this. You go into maternity ward to deliver your baby, but soon something feels wrong. Your baby is whisked away for emergency care. The doctor enters with devastating news that your newborn child had died. You try to move forward shattered, but trusting the system did everything it could, you carry that loss for decades. And then one day you discover that everything was a lie. Your baby was not dead. They were stolen. This is not a fictional story. It happened again and again in my country, Georgia. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of families have lived through this nightmare. And for far too long, it remained buried beneath. During Georgia's political and economic turmoil during the 90s and beginning of 2000s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, black market baby trade flourished in my country. Corrupt doctors, nurses, traffickers, they stole newly born infants from hospitals and sold them through illegal underground adoption system. Most families were unaware of what happened, but many only learned truth decades later. Now, in this criminal scheme, newborn mothers were given various stories about the causes of their baby's death. Respiratory failure, organ failure, or vague references of complications, but in every case, they told and promised to bury the child in a hospital graveyard. Now, those graveyards, they never existed. My investigative project, The Stolen Babies of Georgia, exposes the horrors of Georgia's systematic trafficking of newborns. With every image, I try to seek justice for the hidden crime. Now, in photojournalism, truth is everything. But sometimes it is buried so deep that it takes years to uncover. Georgi, he was born in a small town of Zestapony, but he was declared dead within hours. His grandmother, the only person who saw Georgi when he was born, when viewing his body, swore it was a different child. It was true. Georgi did not die. He was sold, like thousands of other babies, into a legal adoption network. For nearly 30 years, his family mourned the child they believed was lost. Then one day, a nurse confessed. Georgi had been taken. Wrecked with guilt, she told the priest. That priest passed the message on. When Georgi met his biological family, I was there. My camera shook as I tried to hold focus because I wasn't just witnessing a reunion. It was a history collapsing in real time. It was a life returned. I first came across this dark chapter in 2021, shortly after the pandemic, via a Facebook post. A woman named Tamuna Musaridze, she discovered 2 birth certificates after her mother died and suspected she had been sold for adoption. She created a Facebook group called Vedzep, which means I'm searching for. Now, Tamuna told me that similar stories poured in from across the country to the Vedzep group. And mothers searching for their children, or adults searching for their biological family. But what became clear was that this was not like isolated case, but it was systematic. The Facebook group now has over 288,000 members. Every day you can see posts from people, different people looking for a daughter, a sibling, a son, a parent. And with the help of this incredible group of volunteers, through the DNA tests, they're said to have reunited more than 1,000 families. DNA tests are a crucial part of these reunions, though. Among this incredible story of Ano and Taco, twin sisters separated at birth. 21 years ago, Ano and Taco were both sold for adoption to 2 different families, growing up in separate cities without the knowledge of each other's existence. In 2019, they found each other by a TikTok video. When Taco pierced her eyebrow, a confused friend mistakenly messaged Ano, asking when she got the piercing. Ano replied she hadn't. This led to incredible revelation of the twin bond. Growing up, Ano and Taco both had dreamed of a little girl dressed in black, observing them from afar. When I interviewed Ano, she told me that when she was 4, she told her mother that she had a twin sister. Little did she know that this statement held a surprising truth. Then there is Nana. In 1992, she gave birth to a baby girl and heard her cry. Nurses told her that the child was too weak to be seen, and days later, her husband was told by a doctor that their baby had died. Don't worry, you will have another one, they said. They offered to bury the child in a hospital graveyard. But Nana had her doubts. 2 years ago, she started her own investigation, and upon requesting any kind of documents or hospital archive, she discovered that her baby had been named by someone else. And there was no documents proving her daughter had died. There's one more story of Panagiotis Sorokli, now 21, is one of the last 5 babies from Georgia to have been sold into illegal adoption. Now, Panagiotis left Georgia to Cyprus in 2004. He spent years piecing together his story using forged documents that his adoptive parents were given. The names of his supposed birth parents were fabricated. His birth certificate is false, and even the date of his birth remains uncertain. Because of Panagiotis' forged paperwork, a possible linking key players in the trafficking network becomes apparent. This is him in the photo in white, and all of the people in the photo can be identified by name. They're likely individuals involved in selling Panagiotis. But where are these people now? Many are dead, but few are still alive. Without a proper evidence, though, however, they are walking free to this day. This story demands to be told urgently. It has the power to spark public pressure. Despite the growing evidence, there has been limited to official response. Serious investigations yet are to take shape, and formal acknowledgement remains scarce. That absence is why these stories matter. Today, my work focuses on examining forged documents, tracing the individuals who may have been involved in the crimes. This is not vengeance. It's about the truth. It's about giving families the answers they have been denied for decades. This is history ongoing. These crimes remain unresolved. Now, my great-grandfather and grandfather, they were both doctors. They were respected in their field not only for their knowledge, but for their humanity. So imagine what it means for me that the role that some of the medical professionals played in these crimes. And some of you, especially those entering the medical field, may one day be the part of the reckoning. You may help uncover the truth. Let me read you a letter written by a mother to her long-lost twins. Letter is translated from Georgian. She called it the mother's confession. I could not imagine facing such great ordeal in my old age. My children, who I mourned all my life, turned out to be not dead, but sold for adoption. All day long, I go back in time and review every minute and second of my labor, and how the next day I was told that my twin babies died. And today, in my imagination, I have that day when I hug my boys, hug them tight and tell them, I did not give you up for adoption. I'm your mother and always will be. Every day, I'm waiting for you both dawn and dusk. Don't let me down, my brave boys. I'm waiting for you. I don't want anything from you. I don't have financial problems. I don't want your help. I'm just waiting to hug you. Your dear and tired mother. I love you both. Now, this letter is from Irina. Irina had been told that her newborn twins have died of respiratory disease syndrome. The hospital asked her husband to provide a suitcase for the bodies of the babies, which it returned heavy and locked. The grieving parents buried the case unopened in their backyard, but in 222, Irina's daughter exhumed the suitcase. The police told the family that it was filled with wine branches rather than the remains of their siblings. This is not just a Georgian story. It is a human story. It's about what happens when power goes unchecked and when vulnerable are silenced. But it's also about the incredible resilience of people who continue to search for truth decades later. Each reunion, each photograph, each confession brings us one step closer to justice. We must keep looking, keep telling the stories, keep asking hard questions, because only through truth can healing begin. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. So that was a really endearing speech and very deep. And usually these things, you read about them on the internet, you read about them in different medias, you hear in the circle of your friends. But usually that's where they stay, right? Behind the screen. Just conspiracies, tales to fathom. So thank you, Daro, for shining the light and making sure that people know that these aren't just stories, they're real life experiences. So our next speaker, TSMU's own neuro enthusiast and aspiring neurosurgeon, is going to tell us about something that we all have experienced or are going to experience. Regardless of the field you work in, engineering, mechanics, computer science, and especially medicine. So please, clap until it hurts for Iman El Imam with her speech, Neurons Don't Negotiate.
Salam, everyone. If there is one thing I believe we all agree on in this room, it's that we are all chasing a dream. What if the real cost isn't the money, but in what we are sacrificing along the way? Ourselves. Even when we forget to care for our well-being, our brain steps in, not to suffer, but to shield us, to keep us going until we remember to hit pause. I want to start by asking you to look at the person on your left. Now look at the person on your right. Statistically, one of you is burnt out. But what if it's all three of you? In medicine, in life, we treat burnout and sleepless nights like they're a rite of passage, a badge of honor we proudly wear to showcase our commitment. What we don't talk about enough is how this is not only emotionally exhausting, but also neurologically damaging. I know this not from studying medicine or being a neuro enthusiast, but from living it myself. As if the complexity of medicine wasn't enough to exhaust my fragile brain, circumstances led me to transfer to a new university with a completely new educational system. I arrived equipped with nothing but my already overwhelmed brain and an unreasonable level of ambition. There was a moment, one that made me stop and ask, why do I even care so much about this dream? And it wasn't some grand revelation or epiphany with dramatic music in the background. No, it was a small, quiet realization that hit me in a moment of panic. I woke up after falling asleep studying for an important exam, and I couldn't remember a thing, nothing. nor the last chapter I was on, nor the basics of what I'm supposed to know. It's like the entire night had slipped through my fingers, and everything I spent hours cramming has evaporated into the void of my brain. That's when I started questioning, why was I willing to sacrifice so much for something that wasn't even sustainable? Why let myself slip into the cycle? I pushed myself into such a state of exhaustion so bad to the point that not even my obnoxiously loud alarms could wake me up from. Why? That was the wake-up call that shifted my perspective and made me take minute steps towards change. Because otherwise, it's hypocritical, isn't it? The pressure and high expectations I set for myself slowly crept into every aspect of my life. I chugged on endless amounts of coffee and pulled unlimited all-nighters to the point that not even the most expensive makeup could hide my dark circles. Yet somehow, in the middle of all of that chaos, I kept trying. I kept showing up, all for the sake of a dream. And although that dream is what keeps us going, it comes with a hidden neurological cost, one that we often overlook in the pursuit of our goals, but one we must acknowledge to truly understand the full impact this journey has on us. Neuroscience tells us that the chronic stress we endure, fueled by the desire to be good enough, is rewiring our brains in ways we don't often consider. The constant exposure to cortisol, the stress hormone, does not only impact our ability to think clearly and make decisions, but also affects parts of our brain responsible for empathy and self-regulation, things that are too precious to lose. You don't need to be in healthcare to relate to what I'm saying. So let's make this real. Let's make this about all of us. Raise your hand if you often stay up past midnight trying to finish your work. Raise your hand if you consume 2 or more cups of coffee every day or any energy drinks just to stay awake. And lastly, raise your hand if you sometimes feel that the word burnout isn't just a word, but your default setting sometimes. Yeah, we're not alone. These are what I like to call the white coat taxes. They're the small sacrifices we make every day that slowly chip away at being, turning us from caregivers into casualties of our own profession. And there is no doubt we all do this for a noble cause. To me, it is to be the good doctor. But good doesn't mean being perfect. It means being human, being present, and still growing. Here's the magic I realized. We can rewrite the narrative, and it starts by allowing yourself permission to be human. I remember showing this talk to my dad a few weeks ago, and the first thing he said is, Iman, you don't even apply this in your own life. And that is the point. I am no exception. As healthcare providers, the first thing we lecture our patients and loved ones about is their well-being and lifestyle. We don't even listen to our own advice. And as much as we laugh about it or take pride on who slept the least before an exam, the truth is, the impact isn't just on our psychology. It's on a much deeper neurophysiological level. So today, as you listen to my talk, let's together, yet individually, take a walk inside our brains to better understand the neuroscience behind some of the challenges we've experienced, things you may have dealt with or are currently facing. So let's talk about stress. I know, boring. But did you know that constant exposure to it can shrink your hippocampus, the part of our brain responsible for memory? And a smaller hippocampus means an impaired ability in retaining and recalling important information, making it harder to learn in demanding environments. We all know that rush we get from passing an important exam or making a difference. It is tied to the release of dopamine, one of our brain's feel-good chemicals. But when we're constantly chasing that dopamine high without a rest, our brain's reward pathways become overstimulated, leading to emotional exhaustion. Many of us here develop the habit of procrastinating until the last moment, pulling an all-nighter and sipping coffee just to finish our task. And ironically, it works. But studies show that the chronic lack of sleep affects the parts of our brain responsible for higher cognitive function, impulse control, and problem solving. Not only that, but it amplifies the activity in the amygdala, our brain's fear center, making us more anxious and irritable. And common fixes, like overconsumption of caffeine, although temporarily boosts alertness, is also shown to increase cortisol levels, further exacerbating that stress cycle. To me, this is the paradox of medicine. The more we give without a break, the more we lose. And to truly heal others, we must first understand the impact healing has on us. I'm not denying that each career comes with its own set of sacrifices and compromises, but our well being should never be one of them. There are gentle ways to hack our brain. Self-care, stress management, and emotional boundaries aren't just nice to have, they're the very tools we need to protect ourselves from crumbling. Finding balance does not always look like some perfect morning solution or magical routine. To me, it started with the smallest choices, like setting my textbook aside and picking up a novel to remind myself I could still enjoy things outside of academia. Sometimes recovery looked like a walk in nature. Other times it's looked like laughing with people I loved or simply disappearing and allowing my brain to reset. Both are equally valid and both helped in mending me. I still burn out sometimes, but now I know how to pick myself up quicker. And that is why I can stand here today not reflecting over 6 years of stress, but on 6 years of growth, of flexibility, and of resilience. We cannot pour from a cup filled with nothing but caffeine. We cannot heal with hands that tremble from exhaustion. And we cannot offer clarity when our own minds are clouded. So if there is one thing I want you to take from my talk today, let it be this. Protect your brain. Everything you do, every dream you chase, that's where it starts. And neurons don't negotiate. And for those in healthcare, remember, the best doctors aren't the ones who give until they break. No, they're the ones who realize that true healing starts within. Thank you.
Hello? Okay. So, all right. So I did tell you that's going to be something that's relatable to everyone, right? So, thank you for clapping really hard. And I know you clapped until it hurt. So we're going to give you time to rest your hands, to talk, to laugh, and to take a lunch break for 1 hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the refreshments will be outside. We are expecting you here in exactly 1 hour. Thank you. And that's exactly what we are going to do. We are going to give you an opportunity to come up on this stage and to share your ideas, your experiences, and your innovations. So, do we have any volunteer speakers?
Just raise your hands so we can see you, and you have
There are
a
a
minute
couple of them.
to share any ideas.
Okay.
These sunglasses aren't a fashion statement. Just a reminder that sometimes our vision gets clouded by the glare of what everyone else is doing, instead of focusing on what truly matters to us. Somewhat like the rat race, where students hop from one organization to another, not out of passion, but out of panic. Panic that they're falling behind. Panic that their CV isn't stacked enough. So they say yes to anything and everything, hoping that this will set them apart. But here's the truth. Being everywhere doesn't mean you're going anywhere. You don't need to be in 10 different societies to be relevant. You need to be intentional. Stop chasing busy. Start chasing better. Because at the end of the day, you're not here to collect positions. You're here to build passion. That's my 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing. Do we have any other? Oh, we do. Come on stage.
Anyone else?
The floor is yours.
You have a minute.
So I know that I can never conform to your idea, nor fit into that box that you desperately want me to place into. And that's okay. I don't need to do any of those things. It's okay if you reject me, because if Thomas Edison was not rejected, then we would never have the light bulb. If Albert Einstein was not rejected, we would never have theory of relativity. J.K. Rowling, no Harry Potter. Steve Jobs, no Apple. And the list goes on. And all these inventions and creations are things that we take for granted nowadays. But in the past, it was just merely a dream. And it all started from one thing: rejection. Rejection sets us free. Rejection is simply redirection. Don't you agree?
Thank you so much. Do we have any more?
Is there anyone?
We do?
Wait, this gentleman is jumping over here to give a speech? Should
Okay.
I
should
got
we get him
someone
hop-
here as well.
Go ahead, go ahead. Oops,
Come
hop
on.
to the stage, come on. I said hop, not walk.
Round of applause, everyone.
If we are competing in a marathon, which placement would you consider to be the least favorable? Most would say getting last is quite dreadful. However, I would like to challenge this thought. In a marathon, you have a set of winners and losers. Statistically speaking, most of us will fall right in between, within the comfort zone of mediocrity. Subconsciously, we believe that we are good enough, making us complacent. The unwillingness to be challenged, to compete, to evolve, that is what keeps us average. This entrapment is what we call the illusion of mediocrity. Remember that complacency is like a fuel that burns the illusion of mediocrity. In my opinion, failing is not the problem. Being average is the problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have time for one more.
One more.
One more.
This poor girl has been raising her hand and I
Come
just
on stage.
kind of ignored her.
Come on. Applause. Everyone. The floor is yours. 3, 2, 1. Go.
Quick confession. Time has never politely shown up at my door with a schedule and a cup of coffee. Nope. Time runs. Hi, I am Riddhi Adyaru, medical student, Guinness Book of World Record holder, Georgia's Got Talent finalist, and the founder of Heel and Hope organization. Einstein once said, time is relative. That's why 5 minutes of Instagram scroll feels like 5 seconds. But 5 minutes on treadmill, oh, existential crisis. So here's what you can do. The 80-20 rule. Identify 20% of the task that brings 80% of your results. Focus on there, cut the bluff, because the clock can tick all at once, but your actions, they better be louder than the seconds. Thank you.
The 80-20 rule. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we're going to step back on stage now and continue with our program, I think. I think I'm ready for our next speaker. Medical school is hard. I think many of us here can agree. Now try doing that in another country, a country which has a different culture than yours, a country which speaks a different language than yours, and a city which forces you to join its chaotic orchestra. Our next speaker is someone who is in the center of this all. She's a member from USMD, a fellow batchmate, and she's here to use this platform to tell us just how she manages to balance it all and sing that perfect song. Please give a round of applause to welcome Ms. Janadi Karavita to the stage.
Have you ever felt like a question mark? No, I don't mean have you been asked a question, but you being the question mark. I have. A man once asked me on a crowded bus in Hambantota, Sri Lanka, Oya Lanka avingde? I speak the language, I eat Kiribat, but somehow it looked like I didn't belong. This moment became a running joke, but it lingered because it kept asking the quiet question that many of us carry. What if the world sees you as a foreigner, even in your own home? That's when I realized I didn't lack identity. I just wasn't on beat. And maybe this wasn't a flaw. Maybe I was born off beat. Maybe I was meant to play something different, something like jazz. Take a breath, close your eyes, listen. Imagine a jazz band warming up. A piano wails, a drum skips, and a saxophone that doesn't sound quite right. It sounds chaotic, doesn't it? Until you zoom out. Suddenly, that mess becomes a melody, that tension, a rhythm. It is the art of improvising your way into harmony. And that's also what cultural adaptability is. You don't just survive, you compose something new. One night in Tbilisi, Georgia, I walked into a small jazz bar. The music was loud and fragmented, and each musician seemed so lost in their own tune. And suddenly, it clicked. This wasn't noise, it was conversation, unscripted, alive. That's what adaptability looks like. It's not just adjusting, it's connecting, listening between the notes. The musicians who were once made to be the anomaly of the world created the outcasts of the music world. Jazz. They bent the rules, they broke structure, they evolved. That's what it's like for third culture kids. You see, our languages overlap, our identity shift. Sometimes we're wallflowers, sometimes we're on the front lines, but through it all, our melodies shine. Every country you visited, that's a note. Every time you change the way you carry yourself, that's another. The time you've adjusted your accent in order to connect, guess what? That's another note. But here's the epiphany. This music isn't chaos. It's not just a blend. It's a connection between identities, a celebration of differences. And I reflected on my own journey in that sound, a life I built on finding harmony between multiple cultures, languages, and identities. In 2020, I wrote an article called The Third Culture Paradigm. It was messy, raw, unfiltered. When I published it, something unexpected happened. People saw themselves in my chaos. And beneath all this drama, I come to realize that I was never broken. I was just out of beat. So I stopped listening to the static of the world and instead built a sheet of my own music that I could live in. At home, I was just Sri Lankan, but the moment I opened the door, it was cultural constellation. And my slang, it wasn't just machang or ammatu udu. It was yar, vaime, matla. So when people question my identity, they don't realize that I've always been Sri Lankan, but I've also been shaped and molded by the countries around me. In a place where everyone comes from anywhere and everywhere, you learn that identity isn't rigid. It's relational. And that doesn't confine us, it actually expands us. We learn to compose our symphony. It's about connecting and finding a melody from the in between. Ask yourselves, what's the sound of your journey? A rebel in the jazz world was Sir Fredo, born to Chinese immigrants in the United States, a musician who never fit the mold. He was too Asian for American jazz and too unconventional for tradition. So he built his own sound, seamlessly blending Chinese opera with African American jazz to fit in and stand out. You see, the focus of his work wasn't about fusion, it was about identity. He was bold enough to challenge categories, to grow who he was into his own terms. And this taught me that cultural adaptability isn't about camouflaging. It's having plural identities, it's innovation. It's about creating a sound that only you can play. Sometimes my brain feels like a jazz band in warm up. It's three languages trying to speak over each other, none quite on key. Somewhere between Manike Magehite and Taylor Swift, there's me. And in those moments, figuring it out as I go is the art. There were days I spoke more Georgian than Sinhala, and this was fine until I accidentally yelled Bodishi at the wrong person in the wrong country. I found myself begging my Sri Lankan friends, hey, could you please speak to me in Sinhala, not English? Let me try. Because it mattered. It wasn't to prove anything, but to stay connected to a melody that I came from. And that showing up, that effort, so unsure but still going on anyway, that's jazz. You see, our lives today, we don't just follow one culture, one identity, one language. Haven't we all moved cities at one point? Haven't we all had to take an unplanned detour? Haven't we all had to change the way we speak at work or at home? Why did we have to? We're code switching to connect, to include, to lead. And that is a strength. Every April 14th, I celebrate Sri Lankan New Year, even if I'm far away from home. And one year, it was just two friends and I over milk toffee and kiribat, way past the auspicious time. We had no fireworks, no rituals, but just an active choice to stay connected to a melody that made me, me. Because in a world that constantly asks us to move forward, remembering can be an act of resistance. So when I heard of Sir Fred Ho, who switched genres with so much grace, or when I burnt my hand trying to make milk toffee, I realized that this is my jazz. You know, cultural adaptability, as poetic as it sounds, is a leadership trait that helps build bridges in rooms that are divided. It helps third culture kids like us mediate tension without a manual. The world needs to listen to the offbeat and find harmony more than ever. But let's be clear, this strength isn't soft. It's not passive. It's raw. It's demanding, but so emotionally intelligent and socially transformative. You see, when cultures collide, it's the culturally fluent who play. When systems fail, it's the improvisational minds who find the rhythm. From that bus in Sri Lanka to the jazz bar in Georgia, I've learned that I was never offbeat. I was just playing my own melody. We've been taught to chase certainty, to have clear answers, clean labels, and a beat that makes sense to everyone else. But know this, the most remarkable people you'll ever come across didn't grow by following a tune. They hummed their own. Not fitting in, but still carrying on with all your complexity and still choosing to connect, to include, to lead. They compose for themselves. That's the essence of cultural adaptability. If you've ever felt too foreign, too mixed, too uncertain, know this. People who move in this in-between have the gift of perspective. We need more people who show up in their offbeat, hybrid, half-written truths. You have the strength to build something that didn't exist before you walked in. When you feel offbeat or out of place, don't blend in. Quiet the noise, lean in, embrace, and pause. Because cultural adaptability is a superpower. It's the jazz of your identity.
Hello. Okay. So, thank you, Janari. That was an amazing speech, and I think we can all agree with what she said. Because in our age of globalization and migration, staying in touch with your roots is not easy task. It's a journey. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's magical, and sometimes to build the bridge to your roots, you need, well, jazz. And sometimes you need to be a real detective, a real Sherlock Holmes. And other times, well, you need to be a good gardener. Our next speaker. Hello? Okay. So, sorry about that. Okay. Our next speaker, a TV host, a creator, digital storyteller. There are many things that you can tell about her, but it's easier to say the things that she isn't. So, from the awareness she spreads and the stories she tells, her voice carries courage, curiosity, and that special kind of joy that is utterly contagious. So with your loudest applause, please welcome, all the way from New York, Ezra Freeman.
See, I had an amazing family, incredible friends, and I didn't ever feel like anything was missing by not knowing my birth family or my birth culture. And for as far back as I can remember, my life was full, but our stories, they always run deeper than what we can remember. Over the last 4 years, what was once just my fun fact has now become a central part of my funky Georgian American life. Something that has redefined my every move, given me a new sense of purpose, and has molded me into the most confident, authentic version of myself. But before we fast forward too far, we have to set the stage. So in 2018, I had just moved to New York City to chase my dream of becoming a Broadway star, of course. And that same Christmas, my parents gifted me a 23andMe DNA kit because I was curious about my medical history. But that simple gift quietly planted a seed to roots that I never expected to discover. After I got my results, I saw that I was healthy, very Georgian by my DNA, and I didn't have any close relative matches on the platform. But extremely supportive of my growing curiosity at this time, my parents reconnected with someone who had hosted them in Georgia when they came in 1996 to adopt me, a Georgian diplomat. Now, he assured my mom that my birth family, they were happy, healthy, and they did not absolutely ever want to be contacted. Full stop. I remember this moment in my New York apartment. It's a vivid memory, and realizing for the first time the weight of international adoption. I had never really considered that on the other side of my fun fact, there were real people with their own side of the story, which probably wasn't so fun. In this moment, my birth family became human to me rather than characters in a distant story. I started to wonder, did these strangers, my birth family, have quiet, mournful moments every year, thinking about me and wondering where I might be in the world? Had this day become a painful reminder for them while I, blissfully on the other side of the world, celebrated? Why had I never considered any of this before? For the first time, as they say in Georgia, sitskli skrivili, I felt my blood screaming. Fast forward a year, and I'm working on board cruise ships as an entertainer, and I'm one out of only 10 Americans on board out of over 1,300. And suddenly, my fun fact is not that I'm Georgian, but it's that I'm American. And when my friends would say to me, "Oh, it's so cool that you're American," I found myself correcting them and going, "Well, actually, I was born in Georgia." And after being quarantined in 2020 for a while, I decided to move back home with my parents for the pandemic. And during this time period, I became very close to someone who was actively fascinated by my Georgian roots. But still, I was terrified that being curious about my beginnings might somehow diminish this deep love and reverence that I had for my family and my life. But still, I didn't think you'd actually find anything. I mean, I'd literally done a DNA test years before and found no one. But then he just glanced at my adoption paperwork and there it was. My birth parents' names and address. He asked if we could do a social media search together, and I warned him, okay, but even if you find anything, do not tell me. I'm absolutely sure. See, I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out of this journey, and acutely aware that if I did decide to open that door, I could never close it. Well, 20 minutes later, he found a family in Zugdidi with the names that matched. Mother Irma, father Gela, 2 twin sisters, and a brother. My American grandmother, by the way, who had just passed away, was named Irma Georgiana. It felt so aligned, so deep. How did he, in 20 minutes, find an answer to a question that I never even dared to ask for 20 years? Then it quickly turned into, you know what, just show me. It is amazing what wine can do. And I think in movies, you have this expectation that when you see your birth family in photos for the first time, you'll just know. And it'll be this slow, cinematic build-up with an orchestra playing in the background. And I am here to tell you, that was not at all my experience. Looking at my supposed sisters, Taco and Lika, I thought to myself, no, there's no way. These girls are very thin, very beautiful, have very dark features, and I'm not convinced. Then we got to the father, no, and the mother, maybe. And then we got to Temo. Deep set, light eyes, a round face, light brown hair, maybe. Maybe. Could this be my brother? These were the whispers of my head and my heart, but my mouth, to my friend, said, well, thanks for looking, but there's really no way to know, so let's just forget about it. Well, I could not forget about it. For the next several weeks, I kept intense tabs on this family. I had been raised Christian, but I didn't have a personal relationship with God at the time. But still, at this time, I remember praying, God, I don't want to make a huge mistake. Will my parents be okay with this? Well, 3 weeks in to this social media stalking situation on a family vacation, I loosely hinted to my aunts that I might have found my Georgian family on Facebook. And they were very excited. And they said that my parents would be too. What happens when the seed gets planted and roots start to uncover, but you're scared of what might grow? Well, 2 days after this family vacation, I got a message on 23andMe from Sophie Gvasalia, born in Georgia, raised in Georgia, living in Italy, confirmed by blood, my second cousin. I immediately searched her name and photo on Facebook, and when I saw that she was friends with the family that I had been looking at from afar, I knew it was them. I knew it was God's move. What was planted was watered, and whether or not I was ready or not, it did not matter anymore because it was growing fast. I ran downstairs and told my parents, and my mom's first words were, so, when are we going to Georgia? Sophie called her dad, who called my birth father, and he apparently started dancing, singing, and praising God in the streets for this discovery. And within days, all of us were in touch online, using Google Translate, of course, to communicate. My parents, my birth parents, my siblings, me, all together, sending many, many selfies and many emojis. And it's important to note that around this same time, I was in final casting consideration for a new TV show on CBS, The Real Love Boat, which was a dream opportunity for me, though nothing was confirmed yet. What's more, when I told my job at Princess Cruises what I needed to do and where I needed to go, they sent me and my parents on an 18-day transatlantic cruise to cross the ocean to Georgia together. We packed our bags, held our breath, aware that this could go any way, held each other, and headed for Tbilisi. And as you can see, right away, when we landed in Tbilisi, it was like this unconventional puzzle with no common experiences and no common languages, just instantly became a perfect fit. You can see my mom embracing my birth mother and just everyone embracing. Talk about building bridges and breaking barriers. And I felt like I was on a cloud. I was intoxicated by the warmth of my closest biological relatives whom I had never met and my family whom I had shared everything with, just bonding together seamlessly. After spending our first few nights in Tbilisi, we traveled to Samegrelo, the western region of Georgia, where my family grew up and where the family home was in Zugdidi. I discovered that not only were we Georgian, but we were Megrelians, special Georgians from the western region who had their own language, culture, customs, food, everything. And this was significant for me because this was not them. We were Megrelians. This was not them. This was something that we shared factually, genetically, instinctively. I did not need to study Megreli to qualify. I just was. And after driving through the mountains in this Marshutka van all together, singing along to American songs in matching tie-dyed outfits from my aunt in New York, I was thinking, I have never been this happy in my entire life. What touched me the most was how lovingly and wholly my siblings and my birth parents cared for my parents, going as far as to find a removable van so my dad, who is a big man, could stretch out comfortably without me even asking them to do it. It showed me that I wouldn't be the only one who had to worry about them anymore. I wasn't one of one. I was one of four. As we started to near our destination in Zugdidi, it went dark, it was way past midnight, and the streets started to fill with neighbors. And my sisters, I remember they were filming my reaction, and there were people waving at the car, and I am thinking, what's going on? It seemed like there was a festival happening in the middle of the night in this little Georgian village, and I just assumed that this would soon be explained to me from my sister in the back seat, that this was some Georgian tradition that I had just never experienced before. But can you imagine what it feels like to be welcomed in the middle of the night by 30 plus strangers, only to realize that they've all come for you? The entire neighborhood gathered to celebrate our arrival. And I had never seen anything like this before in my life. I was dumbfounded. And what transpired next, I can still only recall through the photos and videos. I was completely overwhelmed by emotion and adrenaline. But somewhere in between the tears, the laughter, the dancing, the singing, and the wine, I do remember seeing all of my neighbors and my relatives basically kissing my parents, honoring them for the amazing people that they are and for the incredible parents that they were to me, which, as you can guess, wrecked me. And then in that moment, Zugdidi, Georgia became my happy place. Not because it was my hometown, but because they were honored there. My parents. The people who gave me everything. Finally seen, finally celebrated in the way that I had always seen them and had always hoped that the world would too. It was as if the roots that I had uncovered had grown wide enough to hold them too. Because the truth is, they were a part of them all along. We stayed up all night at this Supra, singing and dancing with the neighbors. And at one point, I remember my mother had pulled me aside, eager to show me something. We were standing on the second floor of the house, something unfinished, kind of like an attic, if you can imagine. And he smiled shyly and, of course, typed into Google Translate, "This part of the home is not finished. We have this issue in Georgia." He explained to me that there's a lot of immigration and people have to leave the country to work because there's not enough jobs here. He explained that there's never enough people home in the family to finish what was started. Finishing what was started here is my dream. And in that moment, I saw myself in him, just someone wanting the best for their family. I saw all of us, and everything was pointing backward, forward. It was so deep, but it definitely pointed to something so much bigger than us. And again, I began to pray. God, if the reason that you have given me this life and all this love and all of these opportunities was so that I would one day come back here and help build and finish what was started, make it so clear to me. Make it clear and I will do it. I got the news that I had been cast on that television show, The Real Love Boat, and I would need to leave Georgia for filming in Barcelona in 5 days. It felt like the seed and the roots had all come together and finally led to a bloom, and my childhood dream was coming true. Only now I understood why it mattered. And in the process, I uncovered a new dream. And as much as I have always loved and respected my parents, what they showed me on this visit was beyond words. Their support was total, unconditional, and selfless. They never flinched, never hesitated, not once as I went on this journey. It was amazing. And what I've gone through is probably not relatable at all, but still, I do think there is something here for everyone. I thought that by embracing my Georgian identity, I might lose a part of what I had already loved: my life, my family, everything I knew about the world. I was terrified of what I might learn and of who I might hurt. But I didn't lose anything. I gained everything. I was raised with so much love. I had the kind of childhood that so many people could only dream of. And so when people asked my mom, Nancy, wasn't it hard watching Ezra go through this and reconnect with her family? Didn't you feel threatened? Her answer was, and is now, always has been the same. Why would I ever want fewer people to love her? This is just more love in her life and in mine. And that is what this journey has been. Not a loss, not a replacement, but an expansion. And here is the quiet miracle of PESVEBI, the roots. They run deeper than we can see and further than we can even imagine, really. And there's a quote from the Georgian film PESVEBI, which I will never forget. "The height of a tree is not measured from above ground, but from the roots." And in my own way, by retracing my PESVEBI, I found where my strength comes from. And I realized my American family was never separate from my roots. They were a part of it all along. This was never about choosing one identity or the other. This was about trusting that God's design was never divided, but it was layered, intentional, and complete. And it's true that when you understand where you come from and how you got there, you walk a little stronger into where you're going. You understand and appreciate the differences and all of the foundations that built upon each other that allowed you to soar above ground. And not only that, you begin to see others differently too. You appreciate other cultures more. You understand why we're all so different and just how beautiful, rich, and significant every story really is. You stop comparing because you know, like my mom knows, there is always room for more love. And now, Whenever people ask me for my fun fact, I just smile and ask them, how much time do you have? Madlo ba sa Cartbello, Champion Chucky, Miko Hearts Alian. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezra, for that powerful reflection. You reminded us of what courage it takes to truly be present. But now we go from poetic to practical, where, because there are places where presence isn't just a virtue, it's a necessity, where seconds matter, and being truly present can mean the difference between life and loss. Our next speaker lives in such spaces every day. From trauma bays to critical care units, he stands where human fragility meets medical urgency. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Nicolas Kwachadze.
Today, I'd like to take you to a different world. In the world where time is not broken up into hours, but into seconds. In the world where order has to be created out of a chaos. In the world where a simple decision can draw a line between life and death. This world is emergency medicine, and its equally frenetic twin, intensive care unit. To an outsider, these rooms might seem overcrowded, noisy, disorganized, with plenty of machines, monitors, respirator, flashing lights, sounds, voices shouting out meds, labs, orders. But as soon as you enter this department, you can see what lies beyond this surface. You can understand that there's no chaos, only organization. There is no frenzy, only efficiency. And in the center, a rhythm of action, intuition, ability, and the most importantly, humanity. So let's start from the patient. So every time the patient comes through the emergency department, the patient is living turning point moment. It can be motor vehicle accident, trauma, stroke. It can be heart attack. For some, it can be progression of the chronic illnesses. For many, it's treated unknown. Symptoms and signs that can't be explained. Our work is not to diagnose, to treat, but to be able to see beyond the disease to the person. So it's easy in a hectic environment to worry about numbers. Numbers like heart rate, pulse ox, temperature, respiratory rate, but we mustn't forget that these numbers belong to a human being with a life, with a history, with a loved one who is racing anxiously in the next room. While putting patient on a monitor, giving oxygen, establish IV lines, and giving orders, arranging workup, we must offer them something equally essential, the presence. At times it may be as simple as eye contact, a firm tone. We must remember that cure is not only pharmacological or procedural, it's deeply relational too. Emergency and critical care departments requires high-speed decision-making process. So we're working with unstable patient, with incomplete data, and with limited time frame and limited human resources. You might see a patient with a sepsis. You might see a patient with altered mental status. You might see a patient with new onset of psychiatric disease. You might see a patient with unexplained symptoms, but it's up to re-stratify them and give them adequate care. You are constantly asking yourself, am I doing right? Is this abdominal pain benign or impending perforation is going to get worse? Should I intubate the patient right away, or I can start stabilizing the patient first? Is it normal headache? Is it migraine? Or this is subarachnoid hemorrhage? So this is live clinical thinking and judgment based on experience, knowledge, and time work. During you are making your mind up, you must coordinate your work with the staff. You must call nurses, make normal orders, call medical specialists, and the most importantly, diffuse tension and make normal records. You must talk to the patient and then to the patient's relatives and do it over and over again. This is multitasking. It's not only multitasking we do generally, it's mental triage that never ends. And in the last few years, another layer has been adding to this complicated system. This is technology. Technology helps us to take care and improve the way we care about the patients. So we have electronic cards that give us direct access to patient longitudinal data. We have wearables that helps us to receive the patient information, even the patient, before the patient is admitted to the emergency room. We have telemedicine that brings previously unavailable care directly to the patient, but there is one thing we must remember. These technologies doesn't replace clinical judgment. They augment it. These technologies is our allies, not our replacement. And in the end, it's the doctor who must take responsibility, who must interrupt, intervene, and then advocate. So, we do pay a price for all this work because emotional and cognitive toll is enormous. We are getting tired, we are exhausted mentally, but at the end we must find out the sources to do our job over and over again. Technologies are helping us to make our job better. You must have a moment when you are resuscitating a coding patient 1 minute and holding a dying patient's hand the other during a single shift. And there is no space in between to reboot emotionally. The aspiration is high to move swiftly, to get it right, and to move it again. Perfection is not the goal, good sense is. Resilience is not about being unaffected. It's about being able to return to your work and show up with clarity and compassion, even after everything you've done and even after you are exhausted. And what makes it work together is collaboration. We don't do it alone. We do it as a part of a team. We do it together with nurses, with our consultants, with housekeeping, with admin, and every single person in the department had its role in the patient outcome. So let me leave you with this. In the emergency medicine and intensive care unit, we rarely have the luxury of time. No, we don't. But we always have the power of choice. The choice to take a moment and look at the patient and the disease. The choice to treat a patient not like a medical case, but like a human being whose life is worth it. The choice to listen when the dean is in room is great. So what makes emergency medicine department and ICU great is not medical technologies, is not advanced technologies, is not the speed we make a decision, is the people. The people who stand up every day and rise to the challenges over and over again, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. So let's make together and build a new system that is not only advanced or efficient, but more human and kind. So in the end, I want you to show some pictures. At the beginning of our journey as a medical student, we have different expectations. We might expect to see ourselves like a doctor from enterprise, using these gadgets and devices to diagnose and treat a patient without any restrictions. But what happens in reality? In reality, we work with the patient. We are in close touch with the patient. We are doing repeated physical examination as many times as we can, because we mustn't forget, we are not treating a disease, we are treating a human being with its problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholas, for his speech. A round of applause, everyone, for all that's happened today. We have someone special for you. He would like to say a few words here. Welcome, Arun, to the stage. Round of applause, please.
Hey everyone, how are you? Okay, this is working, so that's one positive thing today. And I understand it can be a little challenging when you're up on stage here and you find it a little difficult. But what we must understand is it takes a lot to be here on stage today. Dr. Nika, I've spent the last few months with him. He was my professor in emergency medicine. And I know there's a lot of USMD people here in the room today. Can we give him a huge round of applause? That support from students, people who've left their homes, come here to this very generous country to learn. It was Dr. Nika who made us feel at home here. It was him who taught us that it is always important to keep your patient in front of you. One of the most important lessons I learned with emergency medicine is always think about the patient. And let me tell you a funny story about that. It was an interesting case. We had a patient who might have been exposed to a toxic material, and the patient came to the ER. I'm making this up, right? We go through these simulations in class. And Dr. Nika asked us, what is the first thing that you do? And hands went up around the room. Everyone is like, I'm going to establish an IV. I'm going to take the vitals measurement. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do this. But me, being the legend I am, raised my hands and I said, Doctor, I will wear gloves. Right? It's kind of pretty funny thing to say to a doctor, especially when you're getting assessed for that class. But that is what Dr. Nika made me. He made me understand that it is important to be present in this situation. And he taught me that no matter what we do, we have to protect ourselves as medical professionals first and focus on our patients the second. And he told us this very interesting story of a case that he was involved in and regarding this toxic poisoning situation. They asked the patients to come into the hospital where the emergency staff were working on them. But the emergency staff started feeling sick after some time. And that is when they realized that there was toxic material on their clothes, the patients, which was affecting the staff. And therefore, they asked the patients to go outside, undress, and come into the ER. So that's what presence of mind is. And that's what we have to do sometimes. Just like today, it's important for us to take the stage and to answer questions, even when we don't understand what's happening, right? And so, as medical students, this presence of mind is very important. We've seen this demonstrated today through many speakers. Eman mentioned that we have to focus on preserving ourselves and we've got to retain our energy. That's very important. So I'd like for everyone to take care of that. Janadi talked about being a third culture kid. I personally am from India. I was born in Dubai and I'm now studying in Georgia. It's very hard for me to answer the question, where are you from? I ask people, do you want the 5-minute version or do you want the 30-second version? 5 minutes, I talk about my family history, how we migrated, where we grew up, what we did, what food I like, what my favorite color is, how it's too cold in Georgia. There's a lot of stories that I bring up. But at the essence of it, I realize that my identity is shaped by who I am. And that is truly important. So For all of you here today,
Bring me my
I want you to take a minute to understand who you are. And from this TED experience, learn about yourself. We've got many speakers who've covered many different topics here on stage today. They've talked about the importance of family, importance of knowing yourself, importance of resting yourself, and most importantly, being present here.
through this one.
So that is what this event stands for. Talking about TEDx events, I personally was part of the previous year's event, the one held on 2023. And I'd like to narrate a few instances from from that event. We started off with an idea. I'm not sure if the person's here, but Fatma was one of the people who brought it up. She was our vice president of the student self-government many years ago when I was in first year. It was an ongoing discussion within our journalism department to create an event that puts Georgia on the map. Because most of us, when we go back home and we tell people, hey, I'm a student, I'm studying in Georgia, they often ask us, oh, you're in the United States, how is that going for you? But what I tell them is what Georgia can offer, no other country can. When I first came here with my dad, the both of us did not know Georgian. This was just after COVID, and it was a little challenging for us to get oriented to the place. We landed straight from Sharjah, we took a flight, and as we were coming down, we found this very good taxi driver who showed us what it truly meant to be Georgian. And to this date, no one can explain it better. As we were coming back from the airport towards Sabartalo, we were going down this road near Avlabari. And from there, you can see the whole city. And I want to paint a picture for you. It's mid-October. The leaves are golden. There's beautiful sunset in the background. The sky is amazing. You get that cold wind. And you see something reflecting in the corner. And I'm like, that's very odd. Why is there this big metal structure on top of a hill? And I ask my taxi driver, I'm like, can you explain what that is? And he tells me, that, Bicho, is the mother of Georgia. And I ask him, okay, what does this mean? Why is it up on the hill? I understand it's important to y'all, but truly explain to me what it means. And he tells me that the statue has a sword and a cup. In Georgia, we're very welcoming people. We've been part of the global trade community for a long time. And what we realized is we have people who come here with good intentions and bad intentions. Those who come here with good intentions, we welcome them with wine. And those who come here with wrong intentions, they get the sword. And that's what Georgia is about. The people here stand up for us. They invite us to their hospitals and they give us the opportunity to become doctors. They enable us to go back to our homes and to take care of the people that we love. And that is truly strength. And I'd like to add this point to the definition that he gave me. The sword symbolizes strength, strength that this country has to sustain itself after so long and so much. The strength of its people in welcoming us, in tolerating us, and in enabling us to grow. And the true generosity of Georgians and the whole community in supporting us. So that's what Georgia is about. And we wanted to put this great country on the map through a TED event. And that is what TEDx stands for. That is the story behind From the Student Lens. And we did a great event back in 2023, and we're doing it again today.
Wow. To extend our appreciation towards our speakers, we would like to present mementos and some goodie bags to every single one of our speakers. May I kindly invite Dr. Irakli Natrashvili to the stage to hand out the presents to the speakers. Round of applause, everyone. I would like to call upon the stage Dr. Tikat Kmeladze. Round of applause, everyone. Gagosh. Is Gagosh here? Okay. Daro Sulakauri, everybody. Iman al-Imam. Janadi Karavita. Ezra Freeman. And give it up for Dr. Nicholas Kwachadze. Thank you, Dr. Irakli. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite the organizers to the stage to speak a few words.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bala. I'm the organizer, and
Hi guys, I'm Ashwin Shajat. I am the co-organizer of TEDxTSMU 25.
Hi guys, I'm Shrivika Kannan. I'm the General Secretary for TEDxTSMU 2025.
so our main goal this time was to deliver quality speeches and quality ideas for the community which resides in Georgia, and to build that gap, to bridge that gap between the international community and the Georgian community. I hope that you guys actually took something away from the speeches today, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. And to show a vote of appreciation for the people who work behind the scenes for our team, we'd like to call upon the department members, the department heads of each department. I'll be starting with the head of curation, Slagya.
Next to come up, we have the technical department headed by Anugrah and Harsha.
Next up, we have the graphics department headed by Pavit.
We have operations headed by Mitra and Akash.
Stage management department by Amar.
Then social media was headed by our two beautiful ladies, Sharon and Sakina.
Logistics headed by Mahalakshmi.
Hospitality by Vetri.
Finance was headed up by Soumya.
Ticketing and registration by Kirtana.
And lastly, we have sponsorship by Dishan and Lester.
And last but not the least, we have our heads of marketing, Arjun and Mahesh.
A big round of applause for the team, and thank you guys. Thank you for this day. I hope everyone had fun. Thank you.
Hello? Yes. So, as all good things should come to an end, so is our event.
We want to formally apologize for all the technical issues that we did have and the interruptions, but we really hope our speakers struck a chord with you. Got you to start thinking about the barriers that exist in your life and how you can go about breaking them. Remember, you have the tools, you just gotta know how to use them.
For now, these were your hosts, Rahman,
Aryan,
and Aman,
signing off. Thank you.